So one of the things that we're noticing a lot in the SaaS space is what we call subscription fatigue. And when we're talking to customers, I hear that I'm paying $20 per user over there and I'm paying $50 per user over here. And the prices keep going up and I don't have much of a choice because now I'm ingrained in these things and now it's gone to $100 per user. So the smaller businesses, like think of 20 people companies, they don't have that much room. Like all of a sudden these things are adding up. So they're getting very frustrated. And we're trying to do certain things where we can offer you certain features that you would be paying somewhere else $10, $15 per user per month or 20, included into our system, and it'd be automatically integrated so that you don't have to worry about that, to reduce the overall cost, right? So while we may be more expensive than, let's say, the cheapest option, we'll never be the cheapest option.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
AJ Jetha, aka AJ, is the CEO of Marketcircle, the makers of the Daylite app. He's a bootstrapped tech entrepreneur, and having arrived in Canada as a refugee, he built a successful business with thousands of customers around the world. He likes how to discuss navigating difficult situations, keeping positive during rough times. And I think, people are going through a bit of a tough time, especially in Canada, where you are right now.
Yeah. It's an interesting period.
So, I hope you don't live through interesting times. Let's just put it that way. So, AJ,
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
So, AJ and I were just talking a little bit about, what is the point of being on this podcast? Because I don't get terribly much feedback from my listeners, which really hurts my heart. So, if you do have some feedback, do please put that in the comments. It's always appreciated. But AJ is somebody who's, if I can say it, has come from nothing and has built up a fantastic business with quite a lot of staff and thousands of happy customers around the world. So what I want to talk about first is a little bit of your journey in Canada from your entrepreneurial journey, because it's tough. Obviously, getting a job is the easiest, way to solidify yourself. But talk to me about maybe what turned you from employee to entrepreneur. Was there a nasty boss? Was there the wife shouting at you? Was it you wanting more money? What was the pivot for you to turn into working, perhaps for somebody else to starting your own business?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what happened was I was working at a company and we were doing DNA analysis software kind of stuff. And the part that I was working on was not like, it was me against another company, which something like 50 developers. And they were based out of Texas and we were here in Canada, in Ontario. And I told the CEO that, it's futile for me to have me against those guys. Unless you're going to put more resources, we should just not do what I'm doing and do something else. And so he appreciated it, but the people in between, me and him, did not appreciate that. So I got walked out politely. And then I started consulting. So I figured that's when I will jump into the freelancer consulting gig instead of looking for another job. So I did that because I had a little bit of cushion. They were very nice to me. They were not mean to me at all. So they gave me a nice cushion. So I started doing that, and I worked for companies like GE and so forth as a freelancer, a consultant. And during that time, I was seeing some things on eBay and so forth, and I decided, you know what? Who does auctions? People negotiate. When they're doing business, they negotiate, all right? So what I think should happen is if somebody has an item for sale or somebody has a request, they should be able to say, hey, I'm willing to pay this much or I want this much. And then you can negotiate back and forth on the price and settle on the price and finish the transaction rather than doing this auction stuff. And so one day I was thinking, well, how could that be? It can't be that hard. And that's what started me creating Marketcircle. So Marketcircle originally was an online marketplace type of thing, Marketcircle. I couldn't get Market Square as a domain, so I went with Marketcircle. And of course, all kinds of stuff happened, and now we're producing applications like Daylite. So there's a long journey there. But that's how I started.
It's quite it's fascinating hearing people's journey into entrepreneurship, because often there's a villain story. So here you have a benign villain that helped you start your business, but
Yeah,
sometimes you do need that push to start your own thing. And when we look at Daylite app, so obviously you don't like having an easy life because you're going into quite a competitive market in terms of Daylite, and
very competitive.
to put it lightly. So explain Daylite app and what it does, because I've read through it. It looks great. It seems to do everything. If you're on a Mac and if you're on anything Apple related, brilliant. And it's a very useful product. But explain to folks what Daylite does.
So let me give you the reason it even came to be.
Yeah.
Right. So when we did the Marketcircle.com thing and that didn't work out, and we went back to consulting, and I had to do sales basically, right? Because we would get a consulting job and then it's only for a certain period of time. Then you have to get the next one and the next one, etc. So I was losing track of who to follow up with. I was losing track of, okay, when I did remember to follow up, I was losing track. Where did I leave off? Like, where was the conversation left? Because typically it was like, these are sizable contracts, right? Like $50,000, et cetera. They're not small. So it's a longer sales cycle. And usually they say, okay, well, leave it with us. We'll think about it and get back to you, or follow up with us in a couple of weeks or a month or whatever. And I would forget. I'd forget where we left off. So that was very unprofessional. And I lost a number of deals because of that, right? Because I either missed the call, or when I was there on the call, because my brain was encoding, I was like not prepared, right? So I decided I needed something. And back then in the Apple ecosystem, there wasn't much. Foolish me, like before, said, well, how hard could it be to make an app that does this? So that's how Daylite started. Daylite started as a tool for us internally to help with the idea of growing the business. And when a few people saw it, they convinced me to sell it as a product, which I didn't have. Originally, I was like, I'll show you what we do so that we can get more consulting business, so that you can be comfortable in our engineering prowess. And I got convinced to sell it as a product, which was a good idea. And I started selling it as a product. And so that's how Daylite came to be. But the gist of the idea back then, and still is now, is to help small businesses, starting from an individual all the way to 100 people, grow their business with the base of productivity. So calendar, tasks, contacts, and then a top layer of CRM, getting new business. And then when you get that new business, you have to deliver on it. So we have a project side as well. So that's the gist of what we do with Daylite. We'd like to think that we help you grow your business. And many customers have started with us as 2 or 3 or 4 user companies, and now they're like over 100, and then they have to leave because, we don't cater to that size of the market.
Yeah.
But which is bittersweet. They accomplished what I wanted to help them accomplish, but then they leave.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. And it goes now into my next question, because as somebody who's used a competitor product of yours for many, many years, I need you to explain to me why somebody would choose your product over, for example, a variety of other competitors whose names will be nameless in this particular episode. But tell me why, there are products like yours out in the market.
Yes.
Explain to me why you think you have a right to go into this market and how you are winning in this market.
So what we do is a little bit different. The reason we even talk about CRM when you see some of our stuff is because that's the most relatable term in terms of what we want to accomplish. So marketing-wise, we had a challenge. What Daylite does is not really a CRM. It's also not really a project manager, but what it is a cohesive system that is designed to help you grow your business. Back in the day, reading Al Ries and Jack Trout's book, Positioning, I always thought that we should create a new category rather than CRM or something like that. But then I was always told that, no, we don't have that kind of financial budget to create a whole new category and educate people on what that category is, etc. So then we kind of veered on the CRM side as a relatable thing. But what separates us from pretty much everybody else is that we have a unified system that is user-friendly, meaning that the calendar is in one place, the tasks are in one place, the opportunities are in one place, the projects are in one place. And so if you look at our user testimonials, they'll pretty much all tell you that what we end up doing is giving them peace of mind because everything is in one place, not, there's this in Trello and there's this in HubSpot and there's this in some other tool or what have you. We kind of put that all together. We don't have all the functionality that some of those apps have, but we have what we believe is this sweet spot of being able to grow the business in one system.
I've seen with a lot of companies, and you mentioned HubSpot, that add so many features that the original reason for them being around has almost been lost. And I've gone through quite a lot of the training on HubSpot, and there's new things the whole time. I use another fantastic service called Descript, which is what I use to edit all of my programs, and a couple of other programs. And they keep on adding, well, not Descript, and I'll get to that now, but other companies, they keep on adding things because they want to keep you on board because there are all these new shiny things, or all their competitors are adding all of these new products. And it makes it actually complicated for you as a business to figure out, well, we originally wanted to do CRM, but now it's got email, then it's got this, then it's got that, then it's got 500 other things. Explain to me maybe how you are preventing yourself from scope creep into going into these other things that are not going to add value or that are going to confuse your customers.
Very good question. So we struggle with this, right? And in order for us to remain friendly and not be like those apps so complicated, we do struggle with this. And we feel that the fact that we're on the Mac and iPhone and iPad, but mostly on the Mac, right? That we are kind of, we have to be very careful as to what features we add and how we add them. We also have constraints in the sense that on the Mac, there are some constraints, but also sync-wise. So one of the other differences that we have in terms of product is we're not a web app like you saw, but we also have offline data. So you can fully use all of Daylite, multi-user and everything while you're completely offline, meaning no connection, you're in the air, wherever you are, or poor connection. A lot of our customers have poor connections. They don't necessarily have poor connections. And you can completely use the application and we'll sync up in the background whenever there is a connection, right? So that poses some constraints. We have some positives in the sense that everything is local and fast. And then we have some negatives in the sense that, when you have a sync system like this, you have to be careful how you add your features. But at the same time, that could be a plus because then we're not just adding everything in there. We are very careful about what we add. So we struggle with that. That is a constant battle between, okay, just put another button here and it'll do this, and put another field there and it'll do that. And then meanwhile, a new user comes in and they're like, what do I do with this? What is this? It's confusion. So we struggle with that. And all the other companies are doing that because they, it's the same battle. If we don't stay relevant, people just go somewhere else.
The SaaS world is extremely competitive. And as you mentioned, it's changing constantly. And another aspect of SaaS is that it means constant selling. And when we chatted a little bit earlier, you said you are not necessarily the most outgoing person.
Yeah.
How do you sell a product like this? Because you surely can't compete against HubSpot and Monday.com and Trello and companies like that.
Right.
So what has been your approach to reaching your target market? And have you found any challenges recently that you've come across that you're trying to overcome?
Yeah. So traditionally, the way we got our leads was through AdWords, right? That was our main lead source. The second lead source, actually sometimes I would say more, is word of mouth. So when a happy user and a happy entrepreneur talks to another entrepreneur, usually people come to us and say, well, so-and-so recommended you, and because of the recommendation, word of mouth is a big deal. But what has happened recently is that the AdWords part is stopped where it's, significantly reduced as compared to before, the effectiveness. And that's because after digging into it, we found that people have changed their habits in terms of how they're finding product. So nowadays, when we're talking to customers on the phone, they're telling us they're finding us through the likes of ChatGPT. So they're asking for, hey, what's a CRM that is native? or what's a CRM that is Mac only, etc. Then we pop up. I mean, the information in ChatGPT is old. It's 2 years old or 3 years old, but at least it tells them, and then they come and look for us, and then they find. So now it's changing in the sense that what used to work for ads doesn't really work anymore, and we have to do the whole SEO, heavy SEO tricks, because the same stuff feeds the AI engines.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the challenge that we faced. And we were talking about earlier about so why am I doing podcasts now? And so one of them is I feel it's easier to have conversations like this than me being a talking head, but also, the marketing angles have changed. Now it's more social media. Now it's more these kinds of scenarios. And I got to become comfortable with it because I'm not necessarily a person that goes out there and I like to be in my corner and do my thing. That's the changing landscape, really.
So, and it is tough. And I love that you brought up the ChatGPT option, because SEO is still extremely important, especially in this age now where you've got ChatGPT and you mentioned Claude earlier and Gemini and all of these other companies sucking this information from the internet. I do believe ChatGPT is updated now, or is taking real data, real-time data. So the information should be updated to SEO. That needs to be, you need to press that refresh button on the SEO so that the bots can check that you're actually allowing those bots to come onto your website. That's something that some folks do, is they don't allow certain bots, and then, you're not going to show up on all of these new AI platforms. Yeah. But when it comes to personal branding, I was reading a long readout this morning on the importance of personal brands and being able to put a face to a brand, because a lot of these businesses, they are so big now. You maybe know who the owner is, but everyone in lower down the ladder who's actually going to work in your business, who knows what's going on? And because you're not a business of 10,000 staff, you're actually able to give sort of personalized attention, or attention to issues that are actually impacting your customers immediately. And putting a face to the company, I think, is extremely valuable for building it.
Yes, that's what I'm learning.
Yeah. And putting yourself out there is difficult. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I've spoken to didn't start out doing marketing degrees, but they become PhDs in marketing after a couple of years.
Ultimately, yes, we have to.
Yeah. Now, let's look at the next couple of years. I really love that you've niched down onto Mac, because I think if you try to do the entire market, your advertising spend would need to be in the millions and billions, basically. Right. Who knows how expensive that CPC is going to be for CRM software.
Yeah, it keeps going up.
I did a lecture today on Google AdWords, and I was just we were looking at some of the cheapest ads and then some of the most expensive ads. And can you guess how much the cost per click is for an oil rig accident attorney?
Wow. Oil rig accident attorney. The cost per click on that one must be low, because that's really rare. There's not much competition there. I would assume. And you know what assume means, right?
And you'd be correct that it does make an ass out of you, because it was £784.
Wow.
So when looking at those, but it's because you just need one. And then what we did in class is we looked at how much is the customer lifetime value of that click, or that person who's going to click through. And it's between $100,000 to $2 million.
Wow. So that $780 is not a problem.
So if you, again, and that's why it's very important to understand how much the cost per click is. But and we had another person in class mentioning that there was a directive sent out in the company saying, please do not click on the advert when you want to log into your company account, because they had hundreds of people clicking on their company account, costing them a fortune. So it is such a devious world when it comes to these ad campaigns. So I don't envy you, especially in the SaaS space. But let's have a look at what do the next couple of years look like for you in terms of growth. I take it you're more Canada focused, because you can have FaceTime, or you can have great engagement with people perhaps in North America. But what does success look like for you in 2025 and beyond?
So one of the things that we're noticing a lot in the SaaS space is what we call subscription fatigue. And when we're talking to customers, or I'm talking to customers, I hear that, I'm paying $20 per user over there, and I'm paying $50 per user over here, and the prices keep going up, and I don't have much of a choice because now I'm ingrained in these things, and now it's gone to $100 per user. And then, so the smaller businesses, like think of 20 people companies, and that, like, they don't have that much room. Like, all of a sudden these things are adding up, so they're getting very frustrated. Even more so the smaller ones, the 5 users or less, right? So that's one of the things that we're noticing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to do certain things where we can offer you certain features that you would be paying somewhere else $10, $15 per user per month, or 20, included into our system, and it'd be automatically kind of integrated so that you don't have to worry about that, to reduce the overall cost, right? So while we may be more expensive than, let's say, the cheapest option, we'll never be the cheapest option because of the offline and so forth. But at the same time, what we want to be is more competitive when you look at the umbrella of things that you need to grow that small business, which is what we're promising we're making, right? So you'll see over the next 6 months, a year, etc., we'll be adding a bunch of these, behind the scenes features that doesn't complicate the UI, and gives you value, and then you don't need to subscribe to various other things on the back end. At least that's our strategy. Now we'll see if we can actually pull that off.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have the imagination, it's another thing to have the execution, right? So that's the direction that we're kind of headed. And that was one of the things that originally also gave us a competitive advantage, but we forgot about that a little bit, that we had this, all-in-one kind of idea, and people liked it because it was simpler, because it was, instead of all the integrations. And then secondly, cost-wise, it was also, I never clued into that earlier, but now I'm cluing into it, better late than never. And so this is one of the trends I see happening 2025, 2026. I haven't seen anybody kind of refute the idea of subscription fatigue. I don't know if in Europe you're using that term, subscription fatigue.
I think it's absolutely happening because everyone wants to charge you $5, $10, $20, $100 a month. I've canceled a whole bunch of subscriptions this year because either I'm not utilizing 100% of the current subscriptions I've got. And I'm saying to my team and myself, I need to get 100% value out of this before I even add anything new. And with ChatGPT as well coming in and all of these fantastic new things, there's a bit of a learning curve that is happening. So we don't want to add any new subscriptions until we know, I don't want to train staff and do things like that when they need to be retrained in 3 months, which has unfortunately been happening for the last 2 years since AI or machine learning has become mainstream. So definitely subscription fatigue is an issue. Now, but what I really want to ask is, what does success look like to AJ in 2025? And I'm asking this from a perspective of an entrepreneur. Companies or your departments have KPIs, you've got growth targets, and you're obviously taking things seriously because here you are putting yourself out into the universe on a show, on our show.
But it's with you. I feel very comfortable with you.
But with a variety of others. And this is taking your time. You could be on a phone call now making some cash money. Hopefully this podcast is going to make you some money because people are going to hear, wait a minute, I need to go and check out Daylite.app and see what all the hype is about. But what is success going to look like for you this year? Is it going to be, and I don't want to talk about not burning out and being healthy. I want to hear about in terms of like business things. So business success, because your health magically gets better when your business is successful.
Yeah, you can actually take vacations then. So that's a good question. So for me, in terms of that, at a low level, one of the challenges that we faced the last few years was, again, remember we were talking about like how we're offline and we sync and so forth, right? So in building that system, we ended up calcifying the system a little bit. And so that prevented us from being able to add the necessary, those other features I was talking about very easily. It would be very costly for us to add these kinds of features. So what my job is right now is for us to fix those kinds of underlying issues so that we can regain the velocity we had before introducing some of this cruft, I would call it. Like, the engine is gummed up a little bit and I got to clean it and remove all the waste and all the junk there so that it can start turning again. And we have been successful this year so far. Like, we've definitely removed a whole bunch of these constraints, right? We still have a little bit to go. So that's my main goal, so that we can get the velocity back that we used to have a few years ago before we made certain decisions that put gum in the system.
Yeah.
And so my goal for this year, if I accomplish this by the end of the year, I'm super happy. And I'm on my way there, is to get that wheel turning much better in terms of execution of the features that we need to have in place so that we can compete better when people are like, well, I got to get better usage or get better value. Forget usage, it's more value, right? Like, I can get better value than I currently am getting. So in order for me to deliver on the subscription fatigue idea, that wheel, that engine needs to be turning a bit faster than it is right now. And so that's my goal personally.
Okay. Now, I often ask folks about if they had a genie in front of them and they could rub this genie and ask for the perfect client. Who is your perfect client? Who is the perfect person for your business? Who is that? And who should get on to your website right now to check it out?
So the perfect kind of person is somebody that, like, when people say, okay, what target market do you kind of go for? And when they say what about company size? I say 1.5. I don't say 1 and I don't say 2, and I say 1.5. The reason I say 1.5 to 100, right? The reason I say 1.5 is because the customers that take on our product the best and stick with us are those ambitious individuals, people that know that it's okay to invest in a system. There'll be some little bit turbulence at the beginning, but then I'll get the long-term benefits of it. So that's that ideal. And that person typically has either been in another business and systems got in their way, or they've been in another company where they learn the value of these systems. So that 1.5, so that's an ambitious individual that is willing to invest in a system, meaning a process for running your business. The customers that fail the most with us are the ones that are the most disorganized. They don't value a system. So even though they say, hey, I need a system, but then when the system comes, they don't adhere to what they should be putting in the system. So then the system can't be useful to them.
You're talking to about 90% of the world.
Yeah. With AI and stuff like that, maybe we can bridge that gap a little bit. So that's the kind of individual that I'm in the services kind of space. So majority of our customers are like consultants, designers, real estate. In the US, we have a lot of lawyers and financial advisors. So those are the kinds of people that we cater to, the ones that have to work on relationships, and their business is mostly based on relationships. Our majority of our customers have less than 5,000 contacts, but those contacts are highly curated because the relationship matters. And that's one of the other things that we do different than others, is that we accumulate the history of that particular contact so that you have a lot of context.
Having used CRM systems and being relatively disorganized myself, I know the value of them.
Yeah.
I think what you should talk about in our next call is how do you become more organized and how do you use a system like this effectively to really drive growth and make sure that you don't miss out on those custom opportunities, because that's exactly what your service does.
That's right.
It's going to give you such value for you and your team, where you're going to be able to close these deals that otherwise might have slipped through the cracks. And all of us are feeling a little bit burnt right now because we know, oops, yeah, that's me. I should have called Johnny when he said to do it. But nobody told me, and Frank, who was leading the sales team, left, and now who knows what is going on with that.
That's exactly the thing. So one of the intangibles that you'll hear many of our happy customers talk about is peace of mind. because you have to remember, I have to call this person. And by the way, John left. And so therefore the sales thing, I don't know what he took with his computer or what he didn't put in the system. We can take away that headache.
Yeah. And
I'd be more than happy to talk about that. In fact, that'd be a
I think
great
so.
topic.
That'd be a nice one, because I think a lot of people, you called us out with those disorganized people, and those are the people who need it most. I think the organized people can probably do it themselves in an Excel spreadsheet, AJ. It is
Until
to
a
the
certain
certain.
point. Yeah.
The
That is
rest
our
of
biggest
us-
competitor, by the way, is the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of us out there who are slightly disorganized, who just need a bit of a prod in the right direction. And Daylite,
the value prop, right?
Yeah.
Like why is this worth it to you?
Exactly. And discussions like this are where that comes in. It gives people who are more left-brained, I can't remember which the creative one is, but anyway,
one of the brains.
one of the parts of the brain want to be more organized. And I think this system would be a fantastic addition to their business. So AJ, it's been great chatting to you. And where can I send folks? I know I've mentioned a couple of times, but I like hearing it in your voice. Where am I going to send folks to learn more about you and about Daylite?
So our product is daylite.app, daylite.app, just nice and short. And then you can find me on LinkedIn under my full name, Ali Khan Jetha. I am on LinkedIn as more so than any other social media. And so I'll be there. And you can find us on the web. And I'm happy to chat anytime.
Well, I look forward to you migrating to TikTok and doing CRM dances in our next discussion. Daylite.
You have to show me that. I need some examples. So who better to teach me than you?
I'm too expensive. I'm sorry. But that's AJ Jetha from Daylite.app, and it's been great chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Same. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed this.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's KUHNE.no for more information.